The TrekWorks YouTube channel is sponsored by HDA ModelWorks, suppliers of scale lighting products, detail accessory parts, and complete model kits. Visit HDAModelWorks.com today. Hello there again, everybody. Boyd back with you. Well, I apologize for the delay here. I've been very busy in the shop, but I wanted to get back with you guys today and make an update video on the results of our voting contest we had between the two model kits here of the Battlestar Galactica Viper kit and the Star Trek Original Series Romulan Bird of Prey. And I'm kind of surprised about the outcome of this, everybody, but the Viper won this thing hands down. It was probably a margin of about 3-1 as far as the overall voting, from what I could see on the comments left on the last video and over on the Facebook page. So we're going to be building the Colonial Viper here from Mobius Model Kits. I've already actually got started on this a little bit. I've been working on the cockpit area, putting in some of the photo etch detail parts from the paragraphic set that we have with this kit. And coming back in the next video, in the next couple of days, I'm going to be showing you some updates and the build progress on that one. For those of you who voted for the Romulan Bird of Prey, not to worry, we're going to be building that kit as well a little bit later down the line, probably a little bit more later in the fall, because I really like that kit. And I've also, as I mentioned, I've got the green strawberry photo etch set for that, which really brings that model up. I saw a lot of comments, not choosing the Romulan Bird of Prey because they thought it was too simple of a kit. But just keep in mind that we are going to be sprucing the kit up quite a bit with the really nice green strawberry photo etch, and then we're going to be doing some lighting on that as well. I'm also going to be doing some lighting on the Viper here, as well as adding some sound effects using one of my soundboards that I like to use here. We're going to add in some laser, the laser cannon firing effects and the sound of the turbo kicking in, which I think I can do pretty easily. So you guys can look forward to that. I've got quite a few things going on in the shop here that's kept me busy. I'm, of course, continuing to work on the big Enterprise, the 72-inch model. We're still in the process of getting some parts in for that. We actually didn't get a complete kit. Some of the parts for that were still being made, and so we're waiting for some of those to come in. I'm making really good progress on it. I'll give you guys a little update on that when we come back in just a second here, and I'll set some stuff on the bench to show you. And I'll update you some more on some of the other little projects. I've got a couple cool client builds that I've got going on that we'll share with you guys. And so we'll be right back with that. Before we come back, I just want to mention a quick shout out to Ralph at Tenant Controls. For a long time, I've worked directly with Ralph, really since the beginning of my channel. Promoting and using Tenant Controls products. I have a lot of confidence in their products. As you guys may have noticed over the years, I've used pretty much exclusively Tenant Controls, and I just wanted to say a big thank you to the Ralph for that over the years. But over the last couple months, I've been thinking about branching out and going in some new directions, and so I had a nice conversation with Ralph the other day and basically talked to him about what my intentions were, and he's completely on board with it. And I'll continue to use Tenant Controls whenever they're the best thing for the particular thing I'm working on. But there's a lot of really new and interesting products that are out there as far as electronics goes for model kits. The game is being upped, as they say. There's a lot more sophistication to these things, and I'm also going to be getting into doing some Arduino, which many of you might be familiar with. Arduino is a company that puts out some really interesting control boards that are able to be programmed by yourself. I just have to get in and start learning some coding and things like that, and I'm really excited about doing that because I get a lot of ideas about what I want to do with lighting effects, and I look out towards model kits that are coming out in the future, and I think about what can be done with those. And so in the case of learning how to do my own coding and everything, I'll be able to develop my own lighting systems for those and everything, and it'll just make me a lot more versatile, especially since I'm also in the business of building models professionally. So it helps me to provide a bigger platform for my potential clients and things like that, for options and everything. And like I said, you always want to stay ahead of the game. You always want to stay attached to whatever's on the cutting edge, and of course at the same time keeping in mind that you want to keep, you always want to look at the quality of everything. And that's one thing that I think Ralph has always excelled at. The quality of his components has always been excellent. And as a professional builder, I really rely on that so that when I provide a built model to my clients, it's going to last for a really long time and be really stable, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. So those are all things to consider. But just in case you guys notice that there isn't any longer a primary sponsorship on the channel from Tenant Controls, I'll still be associated with Ralph. He's a great guy, and I'm looking forward to developing new relationships with other people out there in this business. So you can look forward to seeing some of that coming up in the future on the channel as well. Okay, guys, enough of the kind of business talk. I know you guys aren't really interested in hearing about any of that here on the channel. It's all about building models. But just in case any of you had any questions going forward, I'm going to take a quick pause here, and I'll bring out some of the stuff. We'll give you a look at the lower saucer that I've been working on the big Enterprise, and a couple of other things I've got going on here in the shop. We'll be right back with that. Okay, everybody, back with you with the first update. And as you can see, we've got the huge saucer for the 72-inch Enterprise in front of you. And this represents quite a lot of work. It may not look like a whole lot right now, but I've been putting a lot of time in on this. And as you can see, what I've done here is I've been working on the internal support area of this model. One of the things that I was considering from the very beginning was how to make this model strong internally. When we got this kit, it was pretty much raw. In other words, all we got was the the raw casting of the hull and everything. We didn't get an internal armature and some other small little detail parts that we're still working on. But the idea from the very beginning for me was to think about how I wanted to reinforce this model. And given the fact that this model is made out of carbon fiber and it's really strong and really lightweight, I wanted to stick with the theme of whatever I use for material to do my reinforcement was also going to be really lightweight. And we were going back and forth having conversations about acrylic and more carbon fiber and things like that, which is, by the way, carbon fiber is extremely expensive. Considering all these different things, and the very first thing I wanted to address with the saucer here was I wanted to be able to make sure that what I call the crush factor of it was going to be, the squeeze factor, if you want to call it that, was going to be taken care of. In other words, when someone handles this saucer in the future, that when they grab a hold of it with their hands, when they squeeze it here to grip it, or because it's going to be removable from the rest of the ship, that it didn't have a hollow feeling to it, and that it didn't, you couldn't squeeze it and maybe crack some of the seam work that's going to be done around here, or crack part of it or something like that. And so we were looking at wood, acrylic, carbon fiber, all kinds of materials. Carbon fiber, number one, being very expensive, and carbon fiber is even more expensive if you have it shaped. In other words, if it's not flat. So if I was to have a kind of a round disc like this made for the center of this thing, it would have been probably that one piece alone probably would have been as expensive as the whole model kit from what I did found out doing some research on that. So I started thinking about materials and things like that, and I just remembered that I had some of this material here, which is a kind of a plastiboard, and it's a material that you can use for making signs and things like that. And this material, if you look at it from one standpoint, as far as folding it or whatever, it's not really that strong. It's it's a good material as far as being stable. It won't rot or decay over time, which is really nice, and it's extremely inexpensive. And but I started thinking about the other idea of yes, it's easily bendable this way, but if you try to crush it this way, if you try to squeeze the ends of this thing together, it's completely impossible. I even tried putting a pair of pliers on here and try to crush it, and it's almost impossible to crush it. So given the idea from an engineering standpoint of what kind of forces are going to be working on this, well, basically you're not going to have any folding action, or you're not going to have any side to side movement of this part. So you're just going to have crush forces going on it. So I came up with the idea of getting some of this stuff and making a ring that I basically put in place all the way here. I carefully measured it and cut it out to be the exact height that it needs to be, so that when you put the top of the saucer down on top of this, the inside of the saucer top just comes down and touches on the top of this, and so we have a nice support in there now. And I wanted to make it a certain distance away from the outside edge, so that I could also double that up and use it as a place to mount my my lighting here, which you can see I've started to work some of that in. I'm just using regular 0805 double density warm white LED strip, and so that turned out to be really expensive too. I'm going to be running this at, these lights at 12 volts, which when I did some testing on this, I actually posted a few pictures over on my Facebook page. Some of you may not have seen that, of the lights actually working. I can't light it up here for you on this bench because my power supply is over on my main bench, and I've got to work on the big parts of the model over here. But it worked out really, really well, and so we'll have a really strong anti-crushing, support ring in here. And the beauty of this, like I said, is it's extremely lightweight. I literally weighed this on a scale, and then after I weighed it again after I got done with this, and it literally added only a few ounces of weight to this. So which is exactly keeping with the idea that I'm trying to do, is keeping this really lightweight. Now I'm going to be going back in here. You can see I left this little area open here. This is going to have a little support plate that's going to go in here. We haven't quite decided what material we're going to make that out of, but it's going to be shaped to fit this contour right here a little bit. And this is where our main support part's going to be for supporting the neck, and giving it support against any kind of twisting action or anything like that, torque effects. And I think that's all the enforcement we're going to need to do on this entire saucer. Being it's carbon fiber, it has really good lateral rigidity and everything like that. And again, not wanting to add a whole bunch of weight. So literally all I'm going to have in here is, you can see how clean this is going to be. There's going to be a couple additional wires for the navigation lights that blink, and there'll be a little, I'm going to use some more of this, make a square, kind of plate out of this, and then I'm going to glue this down in the lower section here, and that's going to have LED tape, attached to the bottom of that, that's going to light up these lower windows here, and then of course a separate LED down in here for the lower planetary sensor. But the inside of this saucer is going to be, really clean. There's not going to be a lot of stuff in here. And we got a couple of LEDs that need to go in the back, for the impulse engines. And then whatever we do, this same little piece right here that I put in place, I'll put LED strip on the top of that shining upward, and that's going to light up all the, bridge, interior parts of the bridge, and the lights around the BC deck on the outer part of the bridge. They're up on the top. So we're going to have very limited, wiring and everything in here. I was able to use small gauge wiring, which is also very lightweight. So keeping in the theme of keeping this all really light, and it's working out really, really good. So this little plate that goes in here will have, a couple of holes drilled in it, and we'll have a socket, a female type socket in here, maybe two of them, because we're going to have a couple of different things. We're going to have a circuit in here for the main lighting, and another circuit for the blinking navigation lights coming off of the control board. So there'll probably be two female sockets mounted in this little plate right here, and then of course there'll be holes drilled in that where we're going to have some Allen screws which can go through there and attach to the main block in the neck to help attach the neck to the bottom of the saucer, or to the the saucer to the neck, and that way this can be modular and removable. That's kind of the plan going forward. Now on the opposite side of this, you can see sometimes you have to get ugly before you get pretty, and I did a lot of sanding on this. I went ahead and cut out all the windows and filled them all in with the liquid resin. Got those all sanded smooth. They look beautiful. They look really nice. The liquid resin works really well for the windows. After you sand them, I wound up going and sanding, with 600 grit wet sanding, and got these to where they're nice and cleaned up, and they have a perfect amount of diffusion to them, where the lighting coming in behind, it really looks exactly like the big model, the 11-footer, and the way the windows look on that, and it gives the exact same effect. So all these windows are nice and smooth and flush with the hull. So what'll happen is when I mask these, I'll use some masks to, I actually made all of these slightly oversized so that a mask can go on here that'll be, just a little bit undersized from what the opening is. And then when we paint this whole thing, and I'll use light blocking paint when I do that, and at the very end when we pull the masks, we'll have really clean, uniform, all even sized windows. I started out, when I started cutting these windows, trying to make sure that like every single one of them was as close to perfect as I could get it. Again, talking about how this kit had the sort of scribed lines on there where the windows are supposed to go. And that process was going along really, really slow because I was trying to be so careful and so precise. And it kind of dawned on me once I decided that the method I was going to use for doing these windows was going to be using the masks and everything. I thought, well, we don't have to be so perfect on the windows. I still tried to keep them, pretty nice and make them, lined up nice and everything like that. But I didn't have to worry about them being absolutely perfect because the masks are going to be perfect. I'll have Jerry cut the masks on his machine, and laying these masks on here, they'll all be the correct size. I'll be able to line them up all nice and straight. The round ones, of course, were easy because all I had to do is drill out holes for those. But the rectangular shaped ones were a little bit more, difficult. So once we put all the masks on here and paint this, and then the very end when we pull all the masks, all the windows are going to look really nice. They'll have just a slight little lip on the edge of them because, the thickness of the primer and the paint will show that. But that'll give the exact effect that we're looking for. So that's all going to work out really well, and that's going to, I'm going to be continuing that same process on the entire build here. So that's the latest update on this one. I've got the armature pattern sent off to Jerry, so he's going to be working on that. I've got more parts are coming in for the a few of the detail parts that we're missing. So as I mentioned, this is not going to be a quick build, guys. Don't expect this to be built in the next month or so. My goal is to actually have this completed by February because we're having another big model show here in San Antonio, and we may or may not take it over for that show. I haven't made up my mind yet, but if we get done by February, we may show up with the model over there. But the main goal is to have it done by July of next summer, which is the big national show. So that's the main goal. But hopefully we'll get it done, by February. But if not, I'm not going to press myself too hard. We're taking our time on this because this is kind of, to me, like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work on something like this. I may wind up doing some more big builds like this later on. We've kind of got some ideas we're kicking around. But this is it for now, and I really want to treat this with kid gloves and do the best possible job I can. I'm also looking at custom lighting systems for this with some special effects. I've got some really neat plans for a display base for it and some special effects to go along with it that I think haven't been done before. So you guys can look forward to all that. And again, we're going to share this entire build with you guys on the channel here. I know a lot of you guys are really excited about it, and so am I. So more on that to come. Okay, we're going to pull out some more stuff and show you guys what's going on here just to get you caught up, and we'll be right back with that. Okay, we're back with you once more, and here I'm showing you guys a Polar Lights 1/350 scale TOS Enterprise that I'm working on. And I don't really show these much on the channel anymore, guys, because I've built so many of these and showed them so many times. This is for my client Ryan, and the reason I'm showing you this particular model is that I've gone kind of in a new direction with this particular build. I've been doing a lot of research ever since the Smithsonian did the restoration on the original 11-foot filming miniature. This is the first model that I've built that I've actually gone in and used the exact specific colors that were called for after the data was produced from the restoration team that worked on the model at the Smithsonian. And so this particular model has been painted with the exact colors that are recommended from the what they found on the original filming miniature. And when I first heard of some of the colors and the things that they were mentioning, I was kind of skeptical, to be kind of honest. I never believed that the Enterprise was kind of a shade of green or whatever. But when you actually apply this on the model, it actually looks really, really good. I'm really surprised. I'm really quite happy with it. Maybe see if I can maybe turn this overhead light off here and it'll look a little bit more its natural color. But it's actually it doesn't look really green. I mean, at certain times when you move the camera around on it, on the lighting and things like that, it may look a little bit green. And I was watching a video that's out there on YouTube of a high definition film that was made of them going through the process of doing the restoration, where they're in the spray booth. You can see them putting on the nacelles and then doing all the work on the model, and then finally the finished product. And you could see at certain times that when the camera moves around, the model appears sort of a gray color, and then it appears a little bit green every once in a while. And that's the magic of this color. It's really an interesting color. Now, what I did is I went and got a color sample. There's a Benjamin Moore color that was mentioned in the Smithsonian article, which was called Heather Gray, which they estimated to be the best matching kind of out of the box or out of the can colors. So I went over to my local Home Depot and I picked up one of their little, in their paint department, I picked up one of their little color swatches that they have on the little pieces of cardboard, and I picked Benjamin Moore Heather Gray, and then I came back here to the shop and I just took some paint and I started mixing until I was able to precisely match that shade, and I was able to do that. I was able to come out exactly on top of it. The other thing that I want to mention is I also have the Master Replicas Enterprise that came out a few years ago, and that's was actually done by Gary Kerr, who's a well-known Star Trek and especially original Enterprise expert, pretty much the preeminent guy as far as that goes in the Star Trek community. He was called in to assist on the restoration of the 11-foot model as well. He's researched that ship for years. Probably the most knowledgeable guy out there. He also worked on the development team for the Master Replicas Enterprise, and that was considered up to this point the most accurate version of the Enterprise that's ever been available to the public as far as, collectibles or whatever. And it is also painted this exact same color. It's sort of a grayish green, and I really am happy with it. I had shown some pictures to my client, Ryan, and he was really pleased with how it looked as well. Now I want to mention that I've been using different types of paints over the years, and this time I decided to try. I had such great success painting the Klingon Katinga with the craft acrylic paints, and I thought, well, let me see how this would work on a big model that's going to have a lot of smooth surfaces on it, and just kind of a test. And I gotta say, guys, I am extremely pleased with how this turned out. I don't have the saucer lid glued down on this yet so I can show you, but hopefully you guys can see this. This has an it hasn't been touched with anything yet except for the craft acrylic paint. I diluted it a little bit with some water because it's water based, and I sprayed this on here and it hasn't been touched. You can see the beautiful perfect sheen that this has on here. I mean, it's really super smooth and it just comes out really even. It covers really well. It seems to be pretty tough. I was worried about it being easily scratched or whatever, but not at all. Being it's an acrylic, it's working out really well. And of course I'm going to seal this with some satin clear once I get done with all my decal work and all of my I'm going to actually paint on the registration numbers, which is something that I do. I use a masking set for that, for the big numbers here up on the top. But I'm really pleased with this, guys. I think this is something that a lot of you out there in the modeling community should start taking a more serious look at, because the paint is relatively economical. It is, much more eco-friendly. I'm used to having to wear a heavy-duty protective mask when I spray in my shop here with using solvent-based paints and stuff like that. And there's virtually no smell from the fumes or anything from this type of a paint. Now I sprayed this with my big, I shouldn't call it big, but medium-sized gun here. And as I said, I diluted it a little bit with water. I ran it through a strainer, which is what you do with all types of paint. You want to make sure you run it through a strainer before you use it. And I gotta say, guys, I just can't believe how good this turned out. I'm really pleased with it. The lower half of the hull here has all been done, and I've sealed that with my satin finish, and you can see it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the sheen on this thing is just beautiful, and none of that rough looking texture that you see on a lot of hobby paints and stuff like that. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So this is something I'm going to be taking a look at going forward. I'll also show you the deflector dish here, which I sprayed with some more of the copper Hobbycraft paint, and of course I put a coat of clear over the top of it. But boy, I mean, you can't beat that, guys. That looks really phenomenal, and I'm really pleased with that. So going forward, guys, I'm going to be using a lot more of that stuff. And once you seal it, of course, too, if you're putting a clear coat over the top, you're adding an additional protective layer onto the top of that. So this works out really good. And again, I was able to go ahead and experiment here and mix my paints together and come out and kind of not waste a lot of money on ruining paint if I didn't get it right or whatever. And it came out really well. Now I'm going to show you the basic primary colors for what I came up with on this. Starting off with this color called Faded Jade, which is, you can see, is sort of almost a mint green looking color here, and then mixing that with this other color from Ceramcoat called Drizzle Gray. These two colors right here, just I kept playing with it, adding more and more of this gray into it, until I got the exact shade. It literally came out exactly right. The reason I figured that out is that I would actually make a little bit of this, and I would go in on my Master Replicas Enterprise, and I would actually dab a little bit of paint onto the nacelle, and then I would just wipe it around a little bit and let it dry, and then and when it dried, you'd see the difference. So finally I got it to where when it dried, you couldn't even see where I had done it, so I knew it was an exact match. And don't worry, I didn't ruin my Master Replicas Enterprise, because if you don't seal this stuff or whatever, you can go back with water and it'll, you kind of have to scrub on it a little bit, but it'll wipe right off. So I was able to, get all that paint removed back off of there. But and I actually used the little card, the little paint swatch card I had from Home Depot of the Heather Gray, and matched it up to that as well. So I got an exact match on this, and I'm really, really happy. So that might be something you guys can check out and look into there. You can make up your own hull color, and that way, mixing it that way yourself too, you can kind of make an adjustment, because sometimes scale has something to do with color too. You may want to go just a slight shade lighter on a smaller model. Like, for example, this exact color that they recommend from the Smithsonian restoration looks good on the 11-foot model, but it might be a little bit too dark on the smaller model. The theory is that on smaller objects you want to lighten the color up if you're trying to match specific colors. It'll look too dark when it's shrunk down. So you can make it a little adjustment. You can add a little bit, or you could use a little bit less of this gray and make it a little bit lighter with this green to get the shade that you're looking for. But I matched it to the Master Replicas, which is the same scale as this model, so it looks exactly right, and I'm really, really happy. I've got to do a little bit of weathering on it. We're going to do the little bit of that rustering around the front here, a couple little streaks on it here and there. My client wants this to look a lot like the Master Replicas model, so we're going to be going ahead and doing that. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. As I said, I don't like to show a lot of stuff that I've already shown before. This is actually the 34th one of these models I've built. A couple of them I built for myself, and the rest were all for clients. So I've got quite a bit of experience on this model now, and like I said, I'm really happy with how this looks, and this will be the way and method I'm going to be using going forward. I just think it looks a lot more accurate, and just really, really looks good. As I said, I was really skeptical about it to begin with. I thought it was going to look too green, but it actually does. And then when you photograph it, it actually doesn't look green at all. It looks just right. So I'm really happy with that. Okay, enough of the TOS Enterprise here. I'm going to pop out a couple more quick little projects I want to show you guys that I'm working on, and then we'll call this video a wrap. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, back to wrap things up, and here's a look at a couple more fun little projects I'm working on here in the shop, which is keeping me really busy. These are both client builds. You guys will be seeing a little bit of these going forward as I get closer to completing them. I'll show you how we did a few of these things and how they turn out. The one on the right is, of course, more Battlestar Galactica. This one is for my client Robert, who you guys might recall a couple years back I built that really cool TOS Enterprise with all the Aztecing paneling all over it. Robert really loved that model, and he commissioned me to build this Battlestar for him. We're actually going to be calling this one the Atlantia, not the Galactica. And as you can see, he's purchased the really nice Paragraphics photo etch set for this. We're also going to be getting the decals for the photo etch from Jerry at HDA Model Works. This gives you all the extra detail for the engines and the interior of the landing bays and everything. Now we're going to be working out something on this that I don't think has been done before that I've seen. And you've got these little details in here on the floor of those sort of approach lights that you see in the Galactica on the original TV series that kind of do the chaser effect. So now this is set up to not go all the way to the back. It's sort of a forced perspective kind of thing. So I'm working out the details on that, but we're going to have at least the initial kind of part that you can see looking back into the bay. The bays are extremely small, unfortunately, but we're going to give a nice little effect of the kind of chaser lights, working in there, and of course lighting up the rest of the hull, the engines and everything like that you'd see, kind of standard on a build like that. But these parts are really nice. I really like these engine grills with the honeycomb effects and everything. So as I make progress on that, you guys will see a little bit of that. I've still got to get the decals, and I've still got to get the custom decals made for the name, Atlantia and all that. And here we also have kind of another custom build. This one's going to be for another client. This one is going to be an Excelsior class ship, but we're going to call this one the Argo. This was a name that he chose. I guess he's into the board games, and the name that he uses on his ship, Excelsior class ship, is the Argo. This will be the USS Argo NCC 2001. Now we're just going to be doing a static build of this model, no lights or anything, but we're going to put all the Aztecing on it and do a really nice paint job on it and everything, and then of course customize it by changing it into the Argo. So as I get a little bit further along on that model, I'll show you guys some progress on that. I've actually started. I've got the hull built already, and I've got the pylons built, and I'm working on some of the other stuff. This one won't take too long to build, maybe a couple of weeks, but we'll show you the finale on that one for sure, at least, and maybe a couple tidbits along the way. And then after I complete all this, there's some more work that's come in, and we're just constantly busy here, guys, and I'm really happy about that. But I'm trying to balance things out a little bit more between the client work and being able to work on some of my own projects. So you're going to see some of my fun stuff coming up here pretty shortly. As I said, we're building the Viper, and we'll probably build either the Romulan or something else after that. But I've got a couple of other cool kits sitting in the queue here waiting to get teed up that I've been looking at building here for a long time that I think you guys will enjoy. So a lot of cool stuff coming up here on the channel over the next, coming up over the fall and over into the next winter, and a lot of stuff to keep us busy. So I apologize for the long delay since our last update, and I'm hoping to keep these videos a little bit more regular going forward. And so I hope you guys will tune in and check it out. I want to say thanks to all our subscribers and all of your comments and everything. Really enjoy hearing from you guys and all your advice and input on all the things that we do here. I take them all seriously, and a lot of good ideas come in that I hadn't thought of myself, so I really appreciate that. I want to say a shout out too to our community over at the Model Shop community, which originally existed on Google+. Well, Google+ shut down earlier this summer, and we've moved over to a new community. I'm going to put the link up here on the on the screen here for you guys that may not know about it. And hopefully you'll join up. What I've done is I've set that up manually so that everyone that registers has to send me their email, and I have to confirm that they're actually a real person and not a bot, because a lot of these websites now are being just bombarded with spam and everything else. So it takes a little longer. It may take a couple days before I get back to you if you try to register. So don't worry, I'll get back to you. And if you don't hear from me, just go ahead and leave me a message. You're able to leave a message on the page itself without actually not being a member, and I'll see that message and I'll get you registered. I just really want to make sure that you're a real person and you're not gonna, you're not a bot, or you're not gonna come in there and start dropping a bunch of spam or other offensive type stuff that we see prevalent on a lot of the other, unfortunately, a lot of the other communities out there that don't, in my opinion, they don't do a very good job policing it. But the best way to keep people involved in a forum is to run the forum properly and not allow that to go on. So. Unfortunately, the old Sci-Fi Model Action forum, it just became old and outdated. A lot of the people that were over there moved over to the new forum, and they're really enjoying it. We've got a bunch of different categories. We're not sci-fi only. And coming up very soon, we're doing our Halloween group build. So anybody that's interested in joining in on that, you're welcome to join in. We've got an ongoing build thread there for the Halloween group build. We're going to do several special group builds going forward. And so I hope you guys will check it out and join in. It's a lot of fun. I'll have some information about that going forward as far as what some of the further upcoming events are. So a lot of fun stuff to look forward to, guys. It's all looking good. So, all right, we're going to end this video here, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Again, thanks for watching. Take care out there, and happy modeling, everyone.